Welcome to The First Turn. I'm your host, Hyena, and today, Llama and I are talking about This Week in Warhammer. If you like what you hear, give us a like, comment, subscribe, or share, or let us know if there's something you'd like to hear us talk about. Alright, let's get to it.
Welcome to The First Turn. I'm Hyena.
I'm Llama.
And today we're talking about some Warhammer stuff.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
We've got the 10th anniversary, the 10th birthday, call it, of Age of Sigmar coming up this year.
Age of Sigmar. Yeah.
We got
Big
a sort of a preview notification
Yeah.
from Warhammer community that they're going to be doing a big preview event for that, which I'm really excited for.
Yeah, me too.
I'm cautiously optimistic, I'll call it.
That's the appropriate way to think of it.
Because, I mean, we've been, again, I can't let this go. We've been burned before.
We've been burned.
This last year at Adepticon, we had a pretty lackluster Age of Sigmar preview. It was, here's the General's Handbook, which we knew was coming already. Because it comes every year. You know, that was a kind of a weird announcement for an entire convention's preview event.
And if you've listened to us since the launch of 4th edition, it was like it got off to such a banger start, and we thought new rules, they seem great. Skaven and Stormcast off to a good start, and we've had just tumbleweeds since. It's like, well, the battle tomes have all been lame, and then okay, they gave us new rules for every army that were good, but why didn't you wait then for the battle tomes for this?
Right. And
then it's like, but model wise,
we're in a huge drought. Because like we've been shown some things, but like release wise, it's been months. The last release we had, I think, was Soulblight Gravelords with their like skeleton leadership, right?
Yeah,
like,
and that was a cool release.
It was neat.
The Death Rattle,
but that was, I mean, look at it. It was like 10 weeks ago, 12 weeks ago. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
This is one of the biggest droughts of models we've had, and this is a game that really thrives on the models. Right? This is what they have. Right? It hasn't had the big draw of being like, oh, it's the big competitive game. It's not as granular and, you know, whatever, as like an interesting IP, right? Because nothing's going to top 40K.
40K is an interesting IP.
However,
if that's not your world.
When you look at the 40K models, they're all kind of meh, right? They're kind of samey.
Yeah, how much more can they really refine the look of a Space Marine?
Right. Whereas, like, there is so much room and so much potential for, like, the fantasy side of things in Age of Sigmar that, like,
they still have to
every
explore.
single army has these amazing centerpiece models that you can't really get in like a sci-fi world, like, because what happens when you scale up to a big size thing? It becomes a tank
or an Imperial Knight,
you know, it's kind of boring, you know, like it's a big vehicle, whereas this you can have big, you know, large living characters. You can have dragons, you can have wave creature, you know, like whatever the thing is, you can have all kinds of big
griffins and,
you know, fantastical models that are not just big robots, you know.
And I know on the artistic side, painters certainly who play neither game, and even some who were only in the 40K side will be like, we got to give it to these Age of Sigmar models. They're the best. And we've seen now that 4 consecutive Slayer swords between North America and Essen have been won by Age of Sigmar figures. And it's
not just the big ones, mind you.
No.
Twice it was just a tiny single character.
And I guess Lazarus won one. Dark Angel guy.
Wait. Yeah, but Lazarus was in there.
But it was like, then you had the Kraken Eater Mega Gargant. You had the Trug. You had this last one was the Stormcast character on the Griffin.
What's her name?
I can't remember. The hooded, mysterious one with the axe. Beautiful piece. But it's everyone's talking about how Age of Sigmar's models, the aesthetic, the centerpiece quality. It's like it's unmatched. Mm-hmm. And so it's not that it's the Kirby. It's a model company, not a game. It's that the models are where this game thrives. And when you have rosters that are so limited, which we talk about that all the time, to beat a dead fantasy horse, you can't then. You have good rules, but you can't then stagnate the models for us because people are just going to sit there or they fall off the game. And it's not like we're in the experiment phase anymore. We were talking about that off mic. This is the 10th anniversary. Yeah. So this is a game that's made it. And
this game has been going on longer than a lot.
And so why then didn't they just delay the release of 4.0 until you could make it an event around the 10th anniversary.
Yep.
Instead, they released it a year prior, have given us so little, and now July 18th coming up, which is a Friday. Check the Warcom thing for your time zone. They're going to give us this allegedly big preview event to showcase the 10th anniversary.
I'm still nervous though.
So am I.
Because I feel like
their idea of big.
What's their idea of big? And then is their idea of big? Well, it's going to include 40K, because that's what it seems like, right? Like how much? I mean, we see this happen daily, where there will be an article from a new thing for Age of Sigmar, and minutes later, it gets buried by an unnecessary lore article for Blood Bowl. Or something like that. That's just like, why did you decide to do this now?
Or the 17th article describing yet another thing about the drop site massacre at Istvan and the Horus Heresy.
Exactly. It's just really weird. So I'm worried. I'm a little nervous that it's going to be like, hey, here's this big preview. Here's a little bit, and then let's show you what else is coming for all these other games. In the middle of the birthday party for Age of Sigmar, they're going to overshadow it with everything else's releases. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be your horrible mother-in-law crashing your whatever holiday event for her own thing. Yeah, that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
We have a friend in the community whose birthday is literally December 24th, and it's like it would be like that as a child. No. You know your birthday's coming up, and like, well, we know it's your birthday, but we're also going to celebrate Christmas for everyone today instead also.
Right.
And you get nothing extra for it being your birthday. Yeah. And so our skepticism, our eternal pessimism, I should say, is that they're going to do this 10th anniversary celebration, but it'll be like a slideshow of the game's history. And then they said something in the article about a brand new army for the Mortal Realms. But if it's a roster, like what we've seen with the AOS-only rosters, it'll be small.
Mm-hmm.
It'll have too many characters, not enough units, and then that'll be it.
Yeah.
Now, my hope is that I am wrong, and the video teaser that Eddie and what's his name gave us, where they're putting on a bunch of hats, leads us and a lot of the internet to speculate that what we'll see is a version of Chaos Dwarves in Age of Sigmar.
But I have so many thoughts about that.
Okay.
And I'm going to list them off. There's 3 thoughts I have on this as like an idea. You have dwarf factions already that need more attention than needing a new dwarf faction.
Right.
Right? Like, you've got the Dwarven Holds, which were the old dispossessed, whatever.
And now they're in Cities of Sigmar, right?
You've got them who's lost 60% of their roster.
Back to the old world.
Which is another thing that they're doing, by the way, is we've actually probably at a negative number of models released for this last 12 months because of how many kits have been cut from the line,
to
by
go
the way,
back to old world.
From even for like Stormcast. Remember when Stormcast was re-released and they had updated some of the kits? They cut like 30 of them.
Yeah.
Different characters and different units that they gave them a time, right? It was a time bomb. They gave them a year to stay in Legends until they were cut, which happened last month.
June, yeah.
But counting up the number of units and models and stuff, whatever released compared to the ones that were cut went to Legends, were probably negative. I would say that.
Yeah.
But Fire Slayers, one of the earliest Age of Sigmar armies, has gotten literally just characters.
Yeah.
That's all they've gotten their entire existence.
Yep.
Their roster is from their initial release. There's nothing new. Idoneth Deepkin, same exact thing. Initial release, they've gotten nothing new. A foot character here or there, sure, but everyone's gotten that. They've got nothing to expand their army.
No.
Like, it's a little frustrating.
It is.
And then all of a sudden now it's like, here's a whole new army. It's like, yes, what about these other children you have that you're just letting drown? Because you're lifting this one up and ignoring them. You know what I mean? Like, and then so that's thought 1. Thought 2, Chaos Dwarves don't fit the setting. Yes, there are Chaos Dwarves in terms of like, dwarfs working for the forces of chaos. They're the smiths and whatever. They're building up the armies and stuff. But the Chaos Dwarves, as we know them from like Total War, do not fit in this setting anymore.
No.
This is thousands of years in the future.
Yep.
Right? Thousands of years of change. Nothing should look like it did in the past.
And I'm gonna just as a side note poo-poo a little bit on some of the lore nerds and the fantasy nerds and who think that everything should remain the same after that much time. Like they do it not only with this, where it's like, oh, where's my, and then the list of thing in fantasy. Why isn't that in Age of Sigmar? It's like, why? Show me in human history, let alone in any fantasy setting, why something should just stay the same for. Horus Heresy, it's the same thing. It's like, well, I want my Space Marine chapter of whatever to look like the 30K Legion version.
10,000 years.
It's like 10,000 years. They don't have the same mantras. Yeah. They don't adhere to the same. Like, most of the Marines from that time aren't alive now, or they're in a dreadnought, or they're a traitor now. So that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so now, you just said your second thing. So now do your third.
Third thing is, let's just have a good time, you know. No.
Roll a dice if you're not sure.
Well, part of the second thing too is that again, it's the big hats, right?
Yeah.
And that really doesn't fit into this setting. And if we got Chaos Dwarves, I don't think they should look like the old. What do they call them? The Dwarven Czars or whatever.
Right.
Of the old world. And then third thing is, why are they releasing it for old world? Because that's the third point. Is it's if they're going to do Chaos Dwarves as a plastic model line, they should be for old world. I will begrudgingly say that.
Yep.
However,
dwarf grudge.
Taking this opportunity of the 10th anniversary of Age of Sigmar to say, hey, here's another army for old world would be a huge slap in the face.
Yeah, it would.
So while I think they should be for the old world, I would be really irritated if they're for the old world. That's my third thing.
Well, especially since they just got all the Cathay eating up the production.
Which also shouldn't have been in the old world. Because Cathay, while as cool as it was, like the model line doesn't fit. And also it's, I don't know, it's silly. I mean, like...
So if this is the faction that they're going to reveal...
Yeah.
Now, if I'm going to err on the... Hear me out. If I'm going to err on the side of optimism, I think it would include... the human Horns of Hashut cultists.
Okay.
Now, what if they lean more into that and less Chaos Dwarfy? If that's not to say there couldn't be dwarves in the lineup. I also think they would have elementals, things that are culty. But I think if they did more of it would be like an opposite to the cities of Sigmar instead of like just an opposite to the dwarves.
Okay.
Now, not as many to choose from, but it's like if they did humans and dwarves, and maybe the dwarves are slave masters to the human cultist or whatever. But you're right, I don't want them to look like the old world Chaos Dwarves. I don't want the army battle tome to be called Chaos Dwarves. Call them like denizens of Hashut or something like that.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely. I agree.
And then give us a new aesthetic. If you're gonna tip the hat to that and you have a few characters or something, or like the Horns of Hashut sort of have the hat with the bowl on it. Okay, but don't give us curly beard, the Sumerian meets Bolshevik. Like don't do that. Don't do that.
I agree.
Like even for the old blokes who want that, you really won't want it once it's in the modern aesthetic. Like don't do that.
Callbacks, right? They've been doing lots of that. That's fine. But like I said, the proper Chaos Dwarf faction as we've seen it, as it still is represented in like Blood Bowl, right? It's just it doesn't fit.
So goofy.
It doesn't fit current design styles and current aesthetics. It wouldn't fit the current setting. Have a take on it, sure, but yeah, like I said, I've got some fears. I got some hopes. One of the other things I'm really hoping for is actually a callback again back to maybe the first edition launch box, which I think would be super cool because we've been kind of
first edition Age of Sigmar.
For Age of Sigmar, yes. We've been seeing some some talks in the stories and whatever about named characters that were from that first starter box, namely Vandus Hammerhand, which was the first Lord Celestin on that Dracoth model that came in that starter box, and the original Mighty Lord of Khorne with the Hound was Corgus Cole.
Yep.
Now they didn't have rules for a bit in there like that harkened back to those original ones. They were kind of more generic.
Yeah.
And then they were kind of like made generic characters and then given legends rules and whatever. Like they've kind of been toying around with it. But I would love to see for the 10th anniversary of that is those models actually getting a redesign and a revamp, a rework. They don't need an excuse to ever introduce more Stormcast.
They don't. No.
But Blades of Khorne Battle Tome is also coming out soon.
Yeah.
Or it should be coming out soon.
They've shown us the cover.
We've seen one character, right?
Yep.
Who is that
exalted hero or whatever.
This is fine. We've seen the cover, but they could absolutely use this as an opportunity to introduce an ascended version of Korgus Call from that starter box versus
Vandus.
Versus Vandus Hammerhand. Even make it, new Khorne models to replace the previous ones because they are showing their age.
Well,
something.
Well, you know what? One thing that's interesting is maybe those heroes in lore didn't stick with the crowd, but talking about separating Age of Sigmar further from the old world, it's like, yeah, but the preeminent players, the big players in the campaign are Archaon, Nagash, Kroak, Alaria. These are all characters from the old world.
Yeah.
Teclis. And it's like, so start giving us more of the... And they've been doing it. They've been giving us more of these new characters. Here's another opportunity for the first two named characters who were on their own in the new setting. I
mean, I think it was kind of a slight to him that they gave Ionis a new model before Vandus.
Yeah.
The Ionis model is awesome, right? He's riding a dragon now. He's super cool, but it really should have been Vandus.
He was the guy.
Yeah.
And Korgus was like one of the first... he was one of the biggest, I guess you could say, problems for the forces of order. He was conquering more than anybody.
Yep.
And
I mean, they even called out to him... had a call out for him with that new Skull Taker, whatever, warband for Underworlds, which
so by the way, remember last week when we were talking about, they said, we've got a blood-soaked reveal for you, and that's what they gave us was this goofy-looking Underworlds warband?
Yeah.
Like,
woof.
They were not good-looking models.
No.
I've got to see the bare plastic, but the paint job didn't help whatever could be saved.
Whatever thought they had was just not showed off.
And I've seen people not only meme it, but others who've tried to Photoshop like what they would do to make it look better, and it involves very little work, mostly paint, but it's still...
Yeah. Woof.
That was a...
But in their lore, in that unit's lore, they aren't fighters. They're like scavengers that follow the armies and find the skulls and add them to the skull trove. But I think they were talking about adding those skulls to the ascended Korgus Call's skull pile, taking it back to his mountain of skulls and adding to it. And it's like, so they keep talking about him, but he has Legends rules. That's it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, what then? Are you going to do something more with him? He was he was a major player in the summer campaign last year.
Yep.
Right? He was the one that was assaulting Hammerhall and almost took down Hammerhall as part of like the one city will fall kind of thing. Like,
well,
he's there.
And now it would be a little disappointing if all the Blades of Khorne get are a hero on foot, that ugly Underworlds warband. Now a glow up to Korgus would be sweet. But it's like if they just get characters in an Underworlds warband and nothing else gets updated, come on, man.
I know. Again, first edition box. All of the first edition stuff for Stormcast has been gotten rid of.
Yeah.
It's all gone. Right? You can use it still, right? It's still Liberators. It's still whatever, but they've all been replaced. We'll do the same for Blades. Yeah. Let's see it.
They were the first bad guy in this setting. And so that's our hope, I guess, for the 10th anniversary reveal is they also do that, pay an homage to the launch of the game without it just being a slideshow, show us a glow up to some of those models, and then if they do that in addition to show us a new army that is predictably something with Hashut, maybe that's an okay Age of Sigmar reveal. But
I still want Shadow Elves. I still want more for any of the tiny armies.
Same.
I wish they would have showed us more for Idoneth. Idoneth is one of those armies that's got such a small roster and gotten nothing but heroes as the expansion to their roster.
Now, so far, and I don't know if it's been leaked, their battle tome appears to be the most different.
Yeah. So they got pretty different rules. I mean, I say that, but they mostly got rules that they used to have in previous battle tomes back. Like that's only really because you got the tides again, where it's like they used to have this, secular, every turn you get a different benefit kind of thing in their previous battle tomes that they lost in the index for the most part. Well, they're getting that back essentially. Yeah. And it makes them. It was a unique mechanic, and it was something that it felt really bad they took away, and so they're getting that back. And it's the biggest divergence from index to Battletome. Everything else has been either a downgrade or has stayed the same.
Just a poor.
What was it? Because Slaves of Darkness just got straight up worse.
Yep.
They took away all the mark systems, and like that was just so much worse. They took away the Ascension and the glory points and all the marks. Like they made that so much worse.
Well, and then they needed the little rules update that everybody got, and then it gave slaves some more variety, and they needed points drops. Like, your battle tome's already out. The launch of 4th was cool, but I still just think they should have just waited for this.
Yeah, because it would have been just as cool when they launched it later.
Yeah,
like you could have given Skaven an update, a model update, because you didn't give them any new rules. I mean, you gave them one new model, the Brood Horror.
Yeah. Vizix Scour, right? I
mean, okay. I guess there was a new, character, but still, like you could have given Skaven a massive update and not change the edition, right? Like you could have said, "Hey, here's this summer campaign that's going to launch with at the end of it, Skaven's getting an update, not 4th edition though."
Yeah,
and then just continued, and then 10th edition. Or a 10th anniversary new edition. Bring it back to Khorne. Bring it back, to Stormcast. Whatever. They could have redone that.
Yeah.
So,
because we talked. It's like the battle tomes have felt like this soft opening, like the real launch of 4th possibly is going to be this 10th anniversary thing.
It's going to be at the end of summer here. Would be the real launch of the edition.
And they've been just trying to get through until then, because they knew this was coming.
Could be,
but then I feel like then the battle tomes we've gotten were just kind of pointless. But we've beat that to death, I guess. Now that would be really cool. I have been in and out of playing and collecting the Blades of Khorne since the launch of 1st edition, and if they do get a new Korgoskul model and he's all demon princed up, or he's on a mount, or whatever they decide to do with him,
he'd be a demon prince because he's ascended. So maybe he'd be a demon prince riding something though. That'd be the first of that.
Now, granted,
imagine if he was a demon prince, no wings, riding like an ascended hound, like a really big
like
hound.
Arbol the Undefeated hound used to be.
That would be really cool.
But the one thing I guess that I'm not excited for is that, when we got Kabanda and we got Angron, we've seen, when we have a Bloodthirster model, we have a Scarbrand model, we've seen what a Khorne demon looks like. Yeah. Is this going to be different, please? Can it be just a little bit different?
I mean, the head and axe variant of the Demon Prince kit are just like, it's a Bloodthirster head.
It is.
It's same. Exactly. It's not...
So what are you going to do to make him different? Right. Now, I think they no longer sell that $1,000 Khorne dragon for Forge World. You remember that guy?
Yeah, he was the 1,500 point one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whose rules were just absurd. But what a waste of that sculptor's time, by the way. That thing took years of progress pictures and whatever. They finally get it into production. They've sold 2 of them. I don't know. And now I don't think you can get it anymore.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Are you going to make that guy on whatever in plastic?
No, probably not.
Nope. Gone forever.
They've cut other things from Forge World they've just never replaced.
But I wonder, do you think, Shartor the Executioner, the Bull Centaur Tauric Lord...
He was the only character they had, by the way, from the Age of Sigmar character series.
Yeah.
Just him.
And one of our friends who moved away to either Japan or somewhere in Iowa, he had the model, and it was stunning. But then they just discontinued it, and we never figured out why.
Yep.
Well, now it could be that comes forward to this, and we get that side of it. We get the beastie side of the new Hashut worshippers.
I mean, they had some Khorne models, like you said, the big wingless dragon riding Khorne Lord. They had the Great Korgorath. I forget his name, but he was like...
it was Scar.
He was like...
Sekar.
He was Bloodthirster, maybe Gargant size.
He was big, yeah.
He was a big guy. So they've had other models like that too that they've just never brought forward either.
Nope.
So no, I don't think he's coming out. Maybe there'll be something similar to him. Actually, I kind of feel like maybe they've even released something already that was similar to him in what's her name? Archeon's right hand.
Abraxia.
Abraxia feels very much like him. Kind of a dragon, lord riding on top. Actually, did that dragon have wings? Maybe it did have wings.
It did. The Khorne one did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying to think. It kind of had like Tarrasque horns.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Okay. The model was so big and had wings, but in Age of Sigmar, you have to understand, it made it unwieldy to move it around the board and actually get it into combat and all that.
Right.
And then somehow, even though he just had this little fat-handled axe from way up atop of the dragon, he could swing 12 times at stuff on the ground.
Yep.
Anyway,
it was absurd. 12. It was like 12 attacks.
Well, it was like when a
3.
commissar with a chainsword sticking out the top of Lehman Russ and could attack back in the day. It just didn't make sense. But yeah, all this Forge World Age of Sigmar stuff has just disappeared. And now, okay, Blades of Khorne and potentially a Hashut army coming out. Which,
again, we bring those up because they overlap with a lot of that Forge World stuff.
Yeah. And so I wonder how much that will be made plastic and how much will just be gone forever.
I guess there was Nurgle stuff, too. You had the Tamrikin's Horde. You had the Plague Ogres. You had the...
Well, Tamrikin's Horde, I think, technically was in Old World first, or Fantasy first.
Yeah, I think it was.
And then he got a book that was made.
Yeah. I remember there were, like, square-based pox...
Plague Toads.
Plague Toads. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And Keswick the Befouled and all those guys for that. Yeah. Yeah, they were all technically... But they were brought forward into AOS 1.
Sale, Faithless.
Yep. Yeah. Who was busted at first.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know. But Shard Tour, the Executioner, was specifically...
And I think his renders, whatever, the bull renders were specifically designed for AOS too. They weren't like End Times.
I don't think so.
They were all made for AOS and they cut them.
Yeah.
Unlike the what are the Mist Monster guys who had rules for a while.
For which army?
Well, it was Fantasy and then AOS. They were just general destruction guys.
Oh,
remember those? They're part of Norska.
Yeah, they're like lizard people.
Yeah.
Mist guy. I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
Well, they had rules that again Fantasy into I guess the werewolves.
Yep.
The skin wolves.
Yep.
Poured it over for a while, and they got skin wolves for Skaven.
All of that. Gone. Yeah.
All that stuff that was old Fantasy Forge World is all gone, and none of them have come forward as replacements in AOS. So that's kind of why I'm kind of bringing that up. Is it's just because they existed and they were it doesn't mean they're gonna. I would have loved it, right? If fucking we got werewolf people, skin wolf mutated people for Slaves of Darkness, I'd love that. If we got actual wolf rats for Skaven to fill out Mulder, I'd love that. The ideas exist. The execution exists in Old World. Like they have all of those in there. If you're paying forward Old World in some meaningful way through Cathay and whatever, bring some of those ideas forward. If you're not going to use them in Old World, bring them in AOS.
Yeah,
they're timeless.
Well, and with Shartor, like you said, he was specifically for AOS.
Yeah.
To take a model that was like that, and you just get rid of him, it's like I do hope they bring him back in plastic then. But I doubt it. Who knows? If we're gonna make the kind of predictions we do, we could wait till next week. But whatever. If we're gonna make the kind of predictions we normally do,
we might see some stuff in the next week that changes our opinions.
It does.
So, without any knowledge of like anything other than a video of them wearing hats is all we're basing it on.
Yeah.
What do we think we're gonna see for the preview?
Unfortunately, or fortunately, Chaos Dwarves, but under a different faction name.
Okay.
For Age of Sigmar. If I'm looking at how their brand new factions have been released in Age of Sigmar, I'm going to guess it'll be like 2 dual kits of units, a handful of characters, a couple of monsters.
Maybe an artillery.
Maybe whatever that looks like now. I hope it is visually very divergent from their Old World counterparts.
Mm-hmm.
I would love if we also got something for the 10th anniversary that wasn't just reliving memories, but more like what you're describing. Give these 2 old characters who've reappeared in lore recently a glow up. Then I think we're going to get all of the other games, the other 5 or 6. I think we're going to see more Plastic Horse Heresy crap. I think we're going to see 40K. 40K might get us surprisingly good because we're kind of caught up there now too.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like Black Templars,
right,
or Salamanders. We might see a new.
Well, we know for Black Templars they're at least getting a new generic
chaplain.
Yep.
But Salamanders hasn't really showed off anything yet. We know they're getting a supplement.
We know they're getting a supplement.
New Vulcan has to.
And on the timeline back in the day, because people were trying to say, oh, it was the Horus Heresy salamanders being happen. It was like, no,
it was the
because
Space
that
Wolves.
picture they gave us of the salamanders was a guy in Gravis armor, which didn't exist in Horus Heresy.
Right. Oh, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
No, salamanders are definitely going to happen for 40K.
Yes.
I think we haven't seen them yet because they were pushed back by the introduction of the Space Wolf.
I agree.
Release. I think that pushed all kinds of stuff back. But I think it's already ready to go. Yeah. I think we're going to see some salamander stuff.
I could see Vulcan Heston, which is the non-Primarch for those unfamiliar.
Yep.
He's just the chapter master.
The chapter master in resin right now.
Yeah.
Could be Primaris.
Given a nice plastic update and looks cool. That one, it wouldn't surprise me even if it was just that for them in a book.
And then a supplemental book, whatever.
Now, it'd be neat if they really fleshed them out. If you're going to go Divergent and put them in a supplement, make them cool. But I don't know. Other than that, specialist games that I don't pay much attention to.
Yeah, I mean, we got a new Underworld Warband already. I don't know if we'll see another one right away.
Yeah. We will still hear nothing about Warcry.
Yeah, Warcry's dead. I'm calling it right now. Warcry is either dead or it's going to be coming back in a different form entirely.
Yep.
It's been a year now since we've gotten anything for Warcry. It's
not even a word. Like
it's dead.
So
calling it.
I wouldn't be surprised if they show some other almanac for Old World. I know they originally said we're doing 9 armies. Well, Cathay, I think, is the 10th.
Yep.
So wouldn't be surprised if they just keep rolling that train.
I mean, Dark Elves. I mean, I could see that.
Yep.
Because they did High Elves, and High Elves is...
Well, High Elves are on an island next to Bretonia also. Yeah. Dark Elves...
But they've got boats that can sail anywhere. They've got boat cities, the Black Arcs, that can post up anywhere and just be an existing island.
You know what would be interesting is if they did that, if they leaned more into that aesthetic for them. Or one of the hats they wore in the preview video was a pirate hat.
Yep. There's a pirate hat. There was a wizard hat.
Who knows? What if for Old World? What if for Old World they're going to keep the Total War train going? And it's like you could do the whatever the Death Army is.
The pirate.
Yeah.
Vampirates.
Yeah.
Vampire Coast.
The Vampire Coast. Because that's cool. A slew of new models.
I mean, it would still be annoying.
It
because again, you'd waste all that production time creating sea creatures and stuff ridden by people when you could have them for Idoneth Deepkin, an existing faction that needs that stuff already.
Yep,
that would be a little. I mean,
Kislev.
Same thing with the Beast Slayer, Beast whatever's, Beast Snagas,
in 40K that shouldn't have been there.
Should have been just in AOS. Anyway, we've talked about that too. Regardless, we could see. I mean, it would still be very neat to have the Vampire Coast. I would
that said,
but again, it would also be like, here's these foot vampires that is also needed by Soulblight right now.
Well, and
like an elite.
And the thing is, like, I don't know if they're going to do a big Old World reveal like that on so close to the heels of Cathay. Like,
I still feel like someone in GW who does these reveals really hates AOS. And they schedule these things to do that just to stomp on their feet a little bit. It's just too coincidental too many times. I don't know. Maybe,
but
there needs to be a day where it's like, here's a preview for this game specifically, and nothing else is shown off that day.
And we don't mean show us pistols.
Period.
Show us all stuff for one game.
Right. That's it. Stop there. Just stop after that.
In fact, why don't you separate the preview events? Do one that is dedicated to the specialist games, the non-core 4.
Yep.
Your Necromunda, your Blood Bowl, your whatever. All those in another thing. You don't need that much space for those, so each game can be featured in one video. Then it's like, but the other ones, do a preview event that is just 40K. Do a preview event that's just AOS. You're going to have the 3 whiners.
I also feel like if they're trying to gauge interest in games and you have a specific preview for each game, it'll give you an idea of how many people are actually tuning in for that specific game.
Right.
You can actually get you can glean some data off of it, right? Because like everyone's going to show up for 40K. We know that already.
They are.
But if it's like, well, how many people are 40K players hoping to see 40K reveals that are showing up for your fantasy reveals? Right? Like you're skewing your interest and you're skewing your data. See how many people are actually showing up to see the previews for Old World.
Well,
you know what I mean? Like,
and the thing
check it out.
And we know, by the way, disclaimer, that no matter which game, which setting, which faction, whatever, is being featured in a preview event, there's always a handful of people in the chat who
asking for a different system.
Asking for the different game. Where's my, and then they'll say the thing. So why are you here? Stop it.
Yep.
But And it's what are they? Do you? By the way, do you expect them to answer that question?
Right.
Do you expect them to go? Oh, that one's coming.
I see this.
April of 26th.
I see this. This post here from Nerdmaster 98.
Yep.
Actually, it's next month. Thank you for asking that question.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Where's my Lehman Russ? Right. They'll do that.
Oh,
too.
we didn't think about that. Let's go make one right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the next Primarch's coming out exactly on. So yeah. So now they claim this is going to be a big preview event, long form. We don't know what that means to them versus what that means to us.
Right.
We are, as you said, cautiously optimistic that this will be a long overdue big one for Age of Sigmar.
Yep.
And I hope so.
Yep. Well, they specifically called it out as the 10th anniversary, but they also didn't do a real reveal on the 10th anniversary.
Nope.
Which was weird. Why not? Why not just show something on the actual day as opposed to pushing it off 2 weeks? It's almost like you forgot, and then you're like, shit, we need to schedule something.
Wait, is this the 10th anniversary?
Crap, we need to schedule something because people are pointing it out. 2 weeks from today, go.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
We're on to you.
Well, yeah, and maybe their preview events don't take that long to actually make. And so it could be that it's like, well, here's a bunch of stuff we already have ready.
Right.
Let's just do a video about it. Get in their team.
Yeah. But no, it'll be something,
I'll watch.
Right? I'll watch it too.
Yeah.
We probably won't be doing it live just because timing doesn't work out.
No, it's
the middle of the day.
For us, it's like a Friday at 1 p.m. We can't really do it.
But we'll talk about it that weekend for sure.
Yeah.
Obviously. But yeah, I think Salamanders will get something. We'll get more drop site mask. I mean, they gave a how to play Solar Auxilia article, whatever. We might see something that goes alongside it, something like that. I don't know. I mean, there's so much.
They announced the pre-order for the new box set for that today, I think.
Okay. Yeah, so it'll be next week. It's for pre-order.
Yeah.
Okay.
So your big 10th anniversary AOS reveal will come 1 week before
Yep.
your Horse Heresy new edition's out, which means Warcom is going to be just stuffed with Horse Heresy stuff.
It's already been stuffed. It's just yeah. Again,
good timing.
Do a Horus Heresy reveal and see when people show up. Just gauge the actual interest.
And how many of them are not? That's harder to gauge. But I was going to say, how many of them are not just buying the models to use in 40K?
Right. What other games we have potentially showing? Kill Team maybe. Something for Kill Team.
Kill Team always gets something. Kill Team and
it was a really weird one this last time. Unpredictable, right? Because you had the weird strain Raveners.
Yep. The hyper-adapted Raveners versus the
AdMech Servitor. Like, who would have guessed that? I don't know.
No. Super cool.
Yeah. Still no payoff on the new Raveners, by the way.
Yeah, we don't know about that.
Interesting.
We still don't know. Unless it's just an error of some kind and I'm misreading it.
Who knows? I don't know.
But we could... Maybe they'll talk about that, too. Maybe they'll throw that in a... Oh, hey, Tyranid Raven's going to do it. Spin him from a few angles. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, Necromunda, potentially. Also completely random. Have no idea what they're going to do that. Yeah, who knows? But I do think it's going to be primarily focused on maybe those three. Or the big four still.
Still.
So, yep. But yeah, like we said, really, really hoping for big payoffs for AOS finally after...
No kidding. After what will be about a year of the new edition.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and then you talked about the Idna Deepkin getting some of their old stuff back. So it's the first time really this edition where a battle tome expands on the index.
Right. Yep.
But we did wonder.
They've introduced some of the stuff through to other armies through new
they did
detachments.
They did,
right? Like they've done the regiments kind of thing has kind of introduced some of that stuff back.
It just still makes the battle tomes feel fruitless, like
right.
So maybe this is that part which we always know comes along with the GW game. Partway through the edition, the design philosophy changed, even though we know they were writing these 18 months ago.
Yep.
It's like there was some stage of the development where they changed what they were doing, and instead of waiting, they like pushed off until it's all the same.
Instead of like revisiting, the ones they had already written previously in the.
Let's just wait for the next edition. Yeah.
Like they could have been like, oh well, we've changed how we're designing these books. Let's go back to the other ones that we wrote early and kind of glow them up a little bit because we clearly changed how we're designing them. No, just hit go, publish it.
Yep.
Continue. We've already got the green stamp. Whatever.
Have we talked about why that's a problem that they do paper?
Yes. Okay. I think we've mentioned it a couple times. Did we? Yeah.
We've mentioned that.
Yeah. But yeah. Yeah. If you listened before, we have talked about that before.
Yeah.
Just the problem with paper being
time.
it's the finality of it, right? Like you have to commit, right? It's too difficult to keep up with rapid changing when you're putting things in print and having them all made, thousands of copies, hundreds of thousands of copies, however many.
And you have to set up your prep window so far in advance that the design philosophy changes partway through, and the stuff comes out and it's already out of date, and it's like
And that's why we get balance changes like a month after a book comes out.
Yeah,
because they're like, well, we knew we weren't happy with how we designed it when we sent it, but we designed it so long ago that we couldn't change it,
and we thought the game was going to look like this.
Right.
We've seen the community has turned it into something else. Now this book's no good.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, I'm happy. I'm excited. They're doing something.
They are.
So,
and who knows? Maybe the Hash It thing will look far cooler than I anticipate. I don't know.
Maybe. We'll see.
I'm not a big fan of the Goofy unless the Goofy is left in like Blood Bowl.
Correct. Yeah, I mean,
because that game is 100% Goofy.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. They've changed how things were looking. In the last 10 years, if you look at the retrospective of how the game has changed, it has gotten a lot more serious.
Yep.
When it first came out, it was a little goofy. There were some goofy things.
Yeah, before you charge, twist your mustache and whatever, say a thing. Yeah.
Lift a drink and shout for the lady.
Right.
All that.
I've even heard people as recently as like the last 6 or 8 months say that's why they never got into it, and they think that's still a part of the game. And it's like, no, it's been...
What are you talking
about? It's been not that for far longer.
For like 8 years.
Yeah.
It's been gone. Yeah. Also, like, I think if you look at, obviously certain armies will never lose the goofy. Goblins, right? Goblins are goofy. That's the appeal of the army. It's if there's one goofy army in the game, fine.
The gits.
Well,
but even then they like on two fronts. So from the Auric War Clans, where you have the Hobgrots, they've made them, goofy looking, like more serious in that they're these sneaky, rusty knife stabbing guys. And then even on the Gloomspite Gits, like the Wolf Riders were less goofy because they didn't just make every goblin hanging onto the leash and flying off the back of the wolf. Yes, they have the guys with the mushrooms and whatnot, but
I was going to bring that up. Gobblepalooza is pretty silly.
It is silly,
but
they've reined in just enough of it to where that's okay. Because even on like the Nurgle side, they do it a little bit where every sprue for every model that comes out has a Nurgling doing something different now.
Yep.
And that's fun, but the army isn't just straight up stupid. And so when I think goofy, I'm glad they stuffed that into, like I said, Blood Bowl. Like that goes there. Pure goofy, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're right. The Age of Sigmar setting gets more fleshed out. They keep doing new maps. They keep doing now. Novels are out, and
or like look at the aesthetic change of you brought up Oryx, but look at the Iron Jaws aesthetics.
Yep.
Right. Like I feel like Orcs. What are the design with the big the like the dozen eggs and as teeth. That style of orc, right? Because there was that style. I mean, you look at the Savage Orcs too, are pretty much the same thing.
Yep.
Right. Like the proportions are silly. They're big toothy grins and
their head was the size of their torso.
Gorilla posture. You like all that. Like those both games had that style of orc in it for a long time.
Yeah. The designer back then was Brian Nelson, and it was Third Ed Orcs in 40K started it, and then the Fantasy Orcs at the same time got the same treatment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Silly.
It was.
Well, you look at orcs now in both games. I would say that the 40K orcs are similar, still more similar, but the AOS orcs are not.
No,
they are so different from what they used to be. The proportions are different. The heads are smaller. The hands are smaller. They're more brutal looking.
Yep.
Like they're very serious looking orcs now. There was a trailer for. It might have been 40K, but it might have been like Dawn of War 3 even. What a disaster that whole thing was. But there was a trailer where it was like a sandstorm, and like the Space Marines were trying to like crawl their way through a sandstorm or something. Does this sound familiar? And like these orcs, these like mega knobs, and they weren't mega knobs, they were like knobs though, came like wading through the sand, and it wasn't blowing them around, but it was blowing the humans around, and they were just like slaughtering the humans as they were coming through the sandstorm. It was like, I remember thinking back then, where are those orcs? Instead of these, oh yeah, mate, we gonna get ya. You know,
right? They're like they were just fat Brits in a pub somewhere.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna shoot my doctor.
Yeah.
You know, like just silly. You know, but it was like we saw these representation of the orcs that were just like, holy crap, these guys are actually terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, like I can't remember what it was for. We can probably find it if we looked it up, but I can't remember what system it was for. I don't remember what year it came out. I don't remember, but I remember a moment where I'm like, finally, we're taking a serious turn here and making like the denizens of the dark places of the universe or of the world actually terrifying.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you think about like the scale of like a human compared to monsters and stuff in any of the systems, when you look at them, you're like, well, actually, this monster is properly huge and scary.
Yeah.
Right? Like look at a Hive Tyrant.
Yeah.
One of the smallest scary monsters in Tyranids.
Yep.
Right? Like it's not by any means a large monster anymore.
Nope.
But you compare him to like a guardsman, and we're looking at like this thing is 5 guardsmen tall. It's like, holy crap, that's actually enormous.
Yeah.
Or a warrior even, right? Like compare that to a human.
Yep.
The Norn emissary being the size that it is, and you look at that, you're like, wait a second, it's terrible on the table. Probably still.
Always.
But you look at it, it's like, this thing is like 45 or 50 feet tall.
Just terrifying.
This thing would be horrifying. Why does it only have, 15 wounds? You know what I mean? Like, why is it so squishy? It should, yeah. Anyway, I like the serious. I think there's a place for the goofy.
So do I.
And there's, a touch of it is nice.
And
but
Warhammer,
making it more serious, because we're growing up and we're becoming serious people.
Finally.
Supposedly.
Or eventually.
Supposedly.
Eventually.
But, like,
Not yet.
I
Almost.
like, making it more gritty. I like, without it being just full grim, right?
Correct.
Because, like, the setting is called Grimdark, and that's a style. There's no hope, right? Like,
Right.
it's just survive for as long as you can. That's
Yep.
the point. But hope actually makes a story better, I think.
It does.
But you also have to have, to counter that hope, you also have to have the looming threat of despair and the scary things lurking in the shadows.
It was Bob Ross who said, you don't forget to paint the dark because you need the dark so the light can show.
Exactly.
And like you have to have the dark backdrop so that the points of light that come through end up relevant. You can't have all hope and all shiny all the time.
Because then it's like, what's the point?
And we're not going to launch into a thing about that, but I actually think that was one of the art style complaints people had with the new edition of D&D.
Oh yeah,
was everything looked
yeah.
bubblegum and happy, and everyone's smiling on this adventure, and it was like there's no threat of anything here.
Yeah.
So now it's up to the DM and the players to like. But in Warhammer, you're right. I think you need to lean serious, have moments of humor, because then both are better.
Yeah.
Right? It was like when Marvel was good. It was like you can tell a serious story and weave the humor throughout, and then both impact.
Right.
Nice. And you're right. I think with orcs, they have migrated more towards the brutal and cunning side of them, because that's so the new Gazkul model, while it's still very over the top in terms of its aesthetic, when you read about his character, he's rightfully one of the most terrifying entities in the galaxy, because he's like smarter than. That cunning part of them means they have this like quick ability to adjust in war and to make decisions you didn't see coming. And not only that, he's this like 20-foot tall monster of battle. So he should be frightening and not just goofy. And I do like that they've leaned that. Even the Iron Jaws, which originally grabbed that old design we were just harping on, but the refresh to them with the brutes and those savage ones that just have skull faces and are mountains of muscle, and then the pig rider ones, they are less goofy.
Yeah, you look at the new pig compared to the old pigs.
Yeah.
The old pigs looked goofy.
They did.
The new pigs are like, holy crap.
That thing could
It's just
swallow
it's,
you
it's
whole.
just all teeth.
Yeah.
Whereas the other one had like, it almost looked like whale teeth, like the hair. That's what it reminded me of, whatever that's called.
Yeah.
Meant
little
for just,
plankton
just
grabs,
filtering. Yeah. It's kind of
Yeah.
what like the old one reminded me of. And the new
Yeah.
ones are just like, holy crap, this is actually terrifying.
Yeah.
This pig is 30 feet long. Like,
And it would just, it wouldn't care what you are, it would just eat you.
Yeah.
Like, and they're carrying these big hacky things that would just cleave people but hurt like hell because it's not sharp. And then of course the Cruel Boys are entirely a different aesthetic.
yeah.
That look way more serious. And their strength doesn't come from just brute steroid muscle. It's like long, lanky, leverage-generating limbs.
Yeah.
And
they know where to stab.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing.
Yep.
Although it is funny, the boss on foot, not the one on the Nashtooth, but the one on foot, actually is inspired with his like headdress and his like tongue coming out of his shield and stuff. It's actually inspired by a model that I saw from, I don't know, 1995.
Oh, sure.
An old metal model of an orc that they just, things have changed since then, and they discontinued, and changed their directive, but they harked back to that original kind of design of the
harken back's great.
All of it. And it's like, wow, even from 20, 30 years ago, this same exact design existed, and they're facelifted it, and it doesn't look silly.
Yeah.
It's just like if they ever did if they tried to go back to that original Nagash design where he was literally like a balloon animal skull for a face. Remember the original Nagash model?
Yeah.
Like
it was like if the Pope had died and was made a balloon animal.
Right.
That's what it was.
It was so silly looking. I'm glad they went with the direction they did with Nagash because he looks amazing.
Yep.
And I mean
that model won't need an update for a while.
The model is so old already. Yeah. It's still
it was
old.
end times. Yeah,
exactly. And but it looks amazing.
By the way, that means it's over 10 years old.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I still haven't finished mine. No, it is. No, it's done. But the idea of that model being brought to the future could work.
Yep.
Not in its actual design, because he had this big tall hat and it was really pointy and had spikes in it. It was silly.
Yep.
But I think very few details of that actually came forward, but maybe it still informed the decision of where to go, because Nagash's hat is huge and it's silly.
He has the biggest hat.
He has an enormous hat. Techless, pretty big hat too. But I think Nagash is still bigger. Talk about big hats.
Big hats.
But again, like they like to inspire from previous, because we're familiar with the previous, and I do like the idea coming back to Chaos Dwarves. I hope it continues. If however they want to implement them, whichever game, I hope it's invocative of the previous, but doesn't just literally copy it.
Yeah, and circling all the way back to if some Hashit faction is coming inevitably. I don't mind if they do callbacks to things, but give it a modern, non-goofy aesthetic.
Right. Because even look at the Horns of Hashit, the units we were talking about before that worship him. They had bull motifs, and they had things on their hats that were bulls, but they were sculpted metal,
like brass
bulls in their designs. They
big brass bulls.
They weren't like, I don't know, like mascot heads.
No,
you know what I mean? Like it's different. So
I don't want to see the proverbial foam finger version of this army come out.
Exactly.
And there's a chance for this to be a really cool moment for Age of Sigmar. There's a chance for it to be another faction that's too small.
It's also an opportunity to like have people scratching their heads of like, why is it even in this game? Yeah. Why did you put it here and not where it was supposed to be?
Yeah.
It's just an
Does that mean there's also going to be Chaos Dwarves in Old World?
Who knows?
Just with the old models, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
We don't know. You talked about the Iron Jaw's Big Pig.
Yeah.
Which was a splash release in 3rd edition or whatever.
Just between books. Yep.
And it makes me wonder, because orcs they're either thriving on the way they loot or they're starving. And you have to imagine that that giant pig is not only hard to round up, train, and arm for war, and then only the biggest, toughest boss gets to ride it, because he probably eats his share of orcs. But do you ever think they would risk a beast of war that magnificent if they were that hungry? They would take it out. They would roast it.
I mean, things happen to the mounts in war too. They die.
Yeah.
You don't need to slay it yourself.
No. What if it's desperate?
Right?
I mean,
yeah.
Maybe they lose a battle, right? And now you've got bosses fighting over who should be in charge, and then it's like
eat the pig.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's not an apple big enough to stuff in his mouth.
It would probably make some pretty decent bacon, though.
Maybe pork belly.
Yeah.
Maybe
absolutely
that pork shoulder, little Boston butt,
some jowl,
boss tin butt, BOSS. Yeah.
All right. Are you saying that you are hungry and you want to eat?
I'm pretty hungry.
Okay.
A long time, yeah.
Let's eat.
Thanks for joining. We hope you enjoyed. Follow us for more of our weekly episodes on YouTube podcasts, Spotify, and Podbean. You can follow myself and Llama on Instagram. We are at Llama Paints Minis and Hyena Paints Minis. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. And as always, we'll catch you next time.